Nice crowd going. Welcome. Nice. Here at the Smart Home Pavilion at the International Houseware Show. Thanks for coming. If you hear any feedback, let me know because I can't hear it at all. How about if I stand in the middle? Just to let you know, if you hear of anything interesting, you want to have a question or a comment, you can throw it up at hashtag IHA Smart Home, and it'll appear on our Twitter feed. We will have some time for some questions here. We're going to have a fun panel. We're going to be talking e-commerce, and we're going to be doing that with with Carter Gerard. She's with the UX design at Beyond Design, and David Kelbaugh of Tacklebox. Please welcome Carter and David to the stage, please. Wow, who brought their own crowd?
I did.
You did.
Yeah.
Classic Carter.
Sorry, guys.
Stacking the deck. All right, so let's first, for people who may not be familiar, Carter, we'll start with you. What does Beyond Design do?
So Beyond Design is a product design consultancy. We work with entrepreneurs, we'll work with startup companies and even corporate companies. And the whole idea is that we'll design anything from personal electronics to power tools, all the way from the research phase to the engineering phase.
Awesome. And Tacklebox. I'm assuming it's some kind of fishing.
No.
No.
Although there is a reference to fishing in there, so good catch. Tacklebox is a branding and marketing agency here in Chicago. We work with companies like Carter's, like Beyond Design, to take products, beautiful product designs, and commercialize them in the marketplace by building a solid brand around them and then accelerating it so that message hits the right audiences at the right time.
Okay, so let's start off just kind of big picture here. What do people want?
Well, right now we're seeing, think about the last product that you bought. You're purchasing it most likely through Amazon, online. The whole accessibility of being able to order products at the click of a button is obviously a huge trend. And so people are trying to design products specifically just for an e-commerce sale. We're seeing a decline in brick and mortar stores. We've seen over $400 billion put into e-commerce sales alone last year. So the whole idea is that people are starting to put more money in products specifically to be sold online.
How does that, we'll start off this way, how does that change the way you design? So in the past couple of years, how has that changed what you do? And then how does that change how you get the word out and get people excited about what they've done?
Right, so if you're looking at selling to a big box store, so if you're selling to Target and Walmart versus selling online, obviously not only is the product design and the aesthetic and the engineering going to be different, but what David will talk about is how you're going to brand that and get that word out. That's going to be different as well. So when you're designing a product for something that's going online, you have to take into consideration the cost of shipping. It's going to be significantly more, especially if you're selling bigger products. It's going to obviously cost more. And if you have a low-priced item, it may not be beneficial to sell larger items unless you can find a way to break them down. A lot of people online will be suggesting that if it's smaller than a shoebox, usually you can get a pretty good price on shipping, and you have less storage space that you'll need as well. So when we're looking at a product, if we get a bigger product, we sit down as a group and we think, how can we break this down but still make sure that we're putting that money into the product? We're making sure it's a valuable product, and it's not just an assemble on spot and you're good to go. If it's a product you have to assemble, how do you keep the quality there and make people think that this isn't just something that we broke down for shipping. Yes, we did, but we put that money back into the product.
And then how are you getting, what channels are you, or let me rephrase that. What are I guess it all depends on the product, right? But what are some overall trends you're seeing in terms of marketing and reaching people and branding, right? Because there are so many products. You can walk here and see that there is, there's no shortage of new products to be introduced.
No shortage of new products. You nailed it. It has never been as easy as it is now to create and launch and market a new product. And so what we're having is a propagation of products. Regardless of category, regardless of industry, there has never been so many choices that consumers have in front of them. At the same time, it's never been as easy as it is now for them to shop and buy, right? So this is creating a lot of noise in the marketplace. And it's actually, consumers are overwhelmed, they're scared at times, and they're very confused. Just because a product is listed on Amazon.com, for example, doesn't mean that it's credible, doesn't mean that it's well made, doesn't mean that it's coming from a reliable place that will be delivered on time. So these are all big question marks that lie incessantly in the minds of consumers these days. And we believe as a branding agency that we can alleviate a lot of those concerns through smart branding. The other thing I'll say about e-commerce in particular, e-commerce let's see, I'm looking at the audience to gauge average age here. I'd imagine that many of you remember that video game Pong, where the ball went back and forth and back and forth. Michael knows it. That game reminds me a lot of e-commerce websites in the sense that e-commerce websites, once you go to them, do a very good job of selling you other products. They keep you bouncing around within the walls of their e-commerce website. And this is no place more evident than when you go to checkout and it says, consumers that liked this shovel also liked this winter glove. Would you like to add it to your cart? So e-commerce websites do a great job of transforming customers into repeat customers, but where they inadequately fail, in our humble opinion, is bringing new customers into that e-commerce ecosystem. And that's where branding and marketing come into play. How do we get that consumer to enter Amazon or enter your marketplace in the first place? There is no solution for that coming from the e-commerce websites.
As you're creating a design, right, let's look at the role of ecosystems and lock-in, right, and how that determines sort of the direction people go. Does that play a role in kind of the products that you're coming up with? Or so, like, take for example Alexa, right?
Right.
You would have Alexa built into something,
Right.
or Google, right? And the two, you could have a device, but they're not going to talk to each other.
Okay.
And then you have sort of, I think about the power tools that I buy. I bought a Ryobi set because it was there and it was easy and I needed one, right? But now I'm kind of locked into their battery and their, thing. And I'm like, well, I've already spent that much money. I'm not going to really hop out of it.
Right.
How does that play a role in kind of looking ahead at meeting where people need to be, also where they might get locked in? Am I making, you know what I mean?
No, it's making sense. Obviously, you don't just want to sell one product to the customer and be done. That's your one product. You can pair it with everything. Well, that is some mission that certain companies will have. We do want to extend on that product, and we want to make sure that if you have one thing, maybe you buy the other one as a pairing item. But like you said, you don't want to get locked into it where all of a sudden you can no longer buy other products because you now have this brand dedication. The whole idea is that if you create a product, you want to create a family of products. You want it to be cohesive. We want you to buy those products, and because of the beautiful aesthetic, because of the function, because it has that purpose, not because everything has to pair together, and now you are like forced and kind of like locked into this scenario. As far as things connecting with Google Home or Alexa, there's always that battle like, oh, I want this product, but I can't because I have an Alexa and it only pairs with Google Home. How do we make it more accessible? How can we make it something where if you have something that pairs to a Google Home, then what are some other additional devices that can also do that? What are some ones that can maybe switch over and you'll have some that pair with an Alexa? And it's that constant back and forth. You're never going to have something that can maybe work with the Alexa and the Google Home, but it's just something you have to consider.
That's interesting. So I want to shift a little bit back to the branding side, right? I just spoke with Ashley. We were talking about Instant Pot and the role of Facebook in creating that as sort of a viral hit. How do you see the role of social channels evolving to get that branding, to get that marketing out there, to get that product to break through?
Yeah, social, it's the TV of the future, really.
TV of the now.
TV of the now, especially among younger consumers. First, philosophically, in order to experience mass market success, which I think all of us in this room would love to do, you need a smart combination of solid branding, a good product, and excellent marketing. It's very, very difficult to experience mass market success without all three of those operating at the highest level possible, okay? So once you get the brand in place, it becomes social media's responsibility, it becomes email's responsibility, it becomes all of the digital channels' responsibility to take that brand and basically syndicate that message directly to the desks of people who matter the most, okay? So social media, by the way, quick note about social media. as you start to blow out your social media platforms, do not ignore Google+. Google+ helps substantially with search engine optimization. So even though you might not use it on a daily basis, don't ignore it. Please set up a profile on Google+. Once you have that, your social media channels, be it LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, those are all free, largely free avenues for you to shout your brand's voice. It's not necessarily an opportunity for you to speak about the benefits of your product, although I have a product person sitting next to me. The benefits of the product are very, very important, but today's consumer is looking for an additional, an emotional reason to advocate for your product. So back to your question about social media, the goal of all of us as marketers is not just to get sales and repeat sales, but rather to get a heightened level of advocacy. And in order to do that, we need an emotional connection and a rational connection. And certainly social media is one of, if not the channel to help your audiences advocate for you.
Does my Belgian waffle maker need a Snapchat?
I think we can debate about Snapchat in particular.
Okay,
does it need?
Let's do it right now.
Yeah, just watch its stock price.
Yeah.
But so it needs a social media. If for no other reason, having profiles set up across all social media channels helps very much with search engine optimization. So that's one thing. The second thing is, if the goal is to get people to advocate for your company that creates Belgian waffles, if you're not sending people social tokens that they can send out into their Twitterverse or retweet, they won't do it. They won't do it. So in order to get a heightened level of advocacy, sending out Instagram makes it easier for them to do that. So absolutely, you need it.
Carter, let's talk about, so you have access to a world of people venting their opinions about things.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of the internet, but that's kind of what goes on.
Yeah.
But how much does, in your role, anticipating versus creating the future of a product, right? So how much are you going like, oh, these are what we think people want, versus like, oh no, we're going to tell them what they want,
right,
and go from there?
Well, a lot of that comes down to research. We're constantly asking people, constantly doing interviews. Look at a new product. What are some complications that you have with it? What are some struggles? What are some things that you never use? And then from there, we can decide, if 90% of the population isn't using half of those functions, why are they on there? Why are they overcrowding a system? And especially when it comes down to UI, UX, people try to make everything accessible on the home page, and that's not necessarily something you need. So a lot of it is talking to people and saying, what do you not like about current products? And a lot of it also is saying, what are you looking for? What are you missing? How can we integrate that into the product as well? A lot of it is based off of what we know, based off of talking to people and getting out there. It could also be trend-based, so going off the assumption of this is a cool feature, and this would really make this product easier and simplify the life of the user. There, you're kind of taking a risk, but if it's something that we believe in as a company and looking at how people interact with that product, and if we think it could work, it's something that we're going to go with our gut instinct and put in the product.
Awesome. Are there any questions from the audience? Yes. The question was about designing products specifically for e-commerce.
Right. So that's one of the things that we've seen a big trend in. Obviously, people are wanting to go into that market. And I don't know if I have to sit differently for feedback to go away. But what we're looking at is especially bigger products. Smaller products, the shipping, of course, is going to be a lot less than if you have a pretty high price range on it. You're going to make a pretty good profit. Our biggest concern comes to those bigger products. If it's something that is going to be a pretty low price point, how can we break it down to make sure that we can ship it out and still save money? If it's something that's extremely long and you put it in a box to send it, it's going to cost you, and if you're selling for $50, you're going to make almost no profit. So how can we break that down, put that money that we're saving from the shipping back into the quality of the product? Then that's something that we're going to try to do. As far as shipping in general, how can we break down these parts so that maybe they fit together in a smaller box for shipping specifically to, let's say, Amazon, straight to the consumer, however you want to do it. And that could be a part of nesting. So how can these parts fit together? How can we cradle the product with other parts of the product so that we're no longer paying for additional support material in the box? Our biggest idea for selling specifically to e-commerce is cutting down as much as we can on the shipping cost and really optimizing the product. Let the product speak for itself. A lot of times in shipping as well, you're going to have to do a drop test. The drop test is going to certify the product so that if it breaks in transit, you're no longer responsible as the inventor, as the business holder. So making sure that the product is sturdy, it's supportive, there's not a lot of room for it to move around in the box. Those are things we look for so that it will pass that test and you can hopefully optimize your sales with it.
So you're saying I need to scrap my design for the 7-foot-tall coffee maker?
Exactly.
Oh.
No.
So let's talk a little bit about, okay, so the product is out there. You know, we talk about designing for e-commerce. Is there any role left for the real world in sort of the branding and marketing that you do, or is it how much is online and what is sort of the percentages and how is that shifting?
Yeah, so when people shop for products on an e-commerce website, about 75% of the time, they're actually going to search the same product outside of that e-commerce website. So suppose, for example, I went to Amazon.com to buy a shovel, and there was the name of a company there. I want to know that that company is reliable. Credibility. Credibility is the biggest thing that's working against people that are selling products on websites. So it's not at all uncommon for that consumer to bounce out of Amazon and do a quick Google search. And if they're greeted by a very nice, well-designed website that has social media channels that speaks about the company and not just the product. If any of you are thinking about bringing a product to market, I would love for you to consider making your company seem larger, seem more reputable than just a product, right? So it's that credibility that you deliver off e-commerce, which will ultimately lead to an increase in sales on e-commerce.
Gotcha. That's a story I hear a lot from, is just creating that, it sounds weird to say it, but creating authenticity, or just at least exhibiting your authenticity.
Yes.
So that people understand that you want to create sort of a real experience for people.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, you want the product to speak for itself. Like David, you want it to, people want to have that emotional connection with that product, and that's on both sides. We want to make it, we want people to be accessible to that, but when they're actually using the product and interacting with it, we want it to be the best usability as possible. We want it to be seamless, so much so that they don't even realize what they're doing. We always say the best products go unnoticed because they're so simple, they're so integrated into our lives, and we see no flaws with them that they just continuously go with it. If you look at your iPhone, you really don't know you're having a problem with it until it's shutting down. You can see the problem directly, but other than that, it's become a part of our lifestyle. So it's something we consider when we're creating the product as well. How do we make this so seamless? How do we really optimize the usability of the product?
In our final minutes here, I would like each of you to give me, from in your industry perspective, what's a trend people should be watching out for, and it can be related to e-commerce or it can be related just in sort of like design or marketing, that they should be watching out for this year. Dave, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I would say, I know we're at a product show, but I would say never in the course of history of consumerism have people cared less about the product than they do now. And I say that because consumers are looking, they're overwhelmed, they're looking. Products can be, most products can be bought so inexpensively. Worst case scenario is they ship it back, and many times that ship it back is paid for. So there's a low amount of risk. When you've got a marketplace that's flooded with products that you know you can return, people are looking for an emotional reason to buy the product, and that's where the brand can deliver that. The other thing I'll say is the goal is not to just sell product. The goal is to get consumers that have bought the product to advocate for you. And finally, the goal is to attract consumers that believe what you believe as an organization. There's a great video called Start With Why. Let your company create an emotional connection. And when you can do that, it will never be as easy as it is now to sell products to them. And they'll keep coming back, and they're way more predisposed to advocate for you as an organization.
Awesome. Carter?
From a product design perspective, or product design standard, we're seeing a lot of people coming in, especially young entrepreneurs, and they'll have a product and they'll say, look, it's a smart device and it can do this. And that's great, and especially we have some great retailers here today who are doing a great job with that. We're getting, again, those young entrepreneurs who maybe they don't realize that this product can speak for itself. You may not need that smart home aspect to it. And then we're also getting people who are coming in and saying, you know, we have a great product and we could really see a benefit from that smart device. So just big trends that we're seeing is everyone wanting to do some sort of smart device, and especially relating back to e-commerce. They want to promote it. They want to say, they want to appeal to almost a younger audience, a millennial audience, saying it's a smart device, it can do this, it can do this. But it's just something to consider, especially if you're creating your own product, that maybe that's not the best choice. Or if you're not considering it, maybe it is something you should consider.
Awesome. Well, that's a great place to end. I want to thank Carter and David for being up here. Give them a round of applause. Yay! And stick around. We'll have our next talk with Kim Kirchner of the Independent Grocers Alliance on what's in your cart, food for thought for today's shopper. That's going to happen in just 5 minutes. Thanks, everybody.